Welcome to the Movie Reactor. Today I will show you a crime, action, and thriller film from 2023 titled John Wick, Chapter 4. Please make sure to leave a comment below to help advise me on how to make this channel more intriguing for your enjoyment. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. The movie opens in New York City, where the Bowery King has taken in John Wick and his pit bull as refugees. BK enters the room and asks John if he's prepared to pursue the high table while he's beating a board till his knuckles bleed. John only responds, "Yeah." John goes to Morocco where he rides his horse after those working for the elder. After killing those men, John goes to the elder and demands his ring, but the elder informs John that the ring is no longer there. The elder is subsequently put to death by John before he leaves. Winston and Sharon are asked by the Harbinger to meet the Marquis de Graymont, who has been sent by the High Table, back in New York. They now know that the elder was put to death, and the Marquis chastises Winston for not killing John. The Marquis condemns and blows up the New York Continental as a result. Winston is declared to be out of the church, and to make matters worse, the Marquis shoots Sharon in the chest. Winston says it should have been him and stays at his friend's side until he passes away. Kane, a blind assassin from Paris, is standing in the park listening to his daughter Mia playing the violin. The Marquis instructs Kane to pursue John. Although Kane claims to be retired, the Marquis threatens Mia's life if Kane defies the High Table's directives. John travels to the Osaka Continental, run by Shimazu Koji, an old friend, whose daughter Akira serves as his concierge. Although Akira doesn't trust John being there, Koji meets with John on the roof and agrees to provide him with sanctuary in secret. Soon, the Marquis' right-hand man Chitty and his kill squad show there in an effort to entice John away. Koji's own men arrive and engage the High Table killers by shooting arrows in the dark. John pulls his revolver and begins to do what he does best as soon as the hitmen reach the roof. Kane shows up and starts his own corpse count while Koji's guards manage to repel the most of the High Table hitmen. He sets up traps to enable him here where his targets are moving before using his sword and gun to murder the men. Akira joins the conflict and puts some of Chitty's men to death, but she is shot and suffers injuries as a result. While he continues to fight additional men, including dispatching a few with a pair of nunchucks, John assists her and Koji in leaving. Kane discovers him, and even though they still consider each other to be old friends, he pursues John despite his reluctance to do so in order to protect Mia. Before John is able to escape, John and Kane get into a brief altercation. A tracker named Mr. Nobody and his German Shepherd are present during the gunfights, and he kills some of the assailants pursuing John. He wants the contract on John's head as well, but he is currently assisting John because he feels the current hit, $20 million, is insufficient. Koji and Akira stumble into Kane as they are leaving. He and Koji had been friends for a long time, but Koji won't let Kane pursue John, so the two fight with swords. When it seems that Koji will be allowed to leave, he continues to struggle until Kane strikes him in the head. Akira hugs her father's body as he passes away and tries to slay Kane with his sword, but he warns her not to do so should she meet the same fate as her father and promises to see her again. Akira seeks up John at the railway station and accuses him of being responsible for her father's passing. He is warned by her to kill Kane or else. Winston meets Bowery King because they both understand that the fact that they are still close to John makes them targets. The Harbinger confronts the Marquis about the needless carnage at the Osaka Continental, but the Marquis insists that it is essential to murder John Wick in addition to dismantling the notion that he is an untouchable and unkillable person. Mr. Nobody then pays a visit to the Marquis and wants a $23 million contract to kill John. In response, the Marquis impales his hand and forces him to decide between pulling the knife out and pulling his hand out to examine his goals. The Marquis grants Mr. Nobody's request as he jerks his hand away, slashing his fingers. At Karen's tomb, John runs into Winston and expresses his sorrow for his friend's passing. Though it is widely believed that High Table duel were simply fables, Winston wants to get revenge on the Marquis and informs John that, in order to be released from the High Table, he must challenge the Marquis to a duel. Only John's family can help him succeed, but the Ruska Roma tore his connection with them and cut off support. John decides to look for them since there is no other option. When John arrives to the Ruska Roma in Berlin, the priest greets him with a shotgun blast before tying him up and placing a noose around his neck. He is greeted by Katia, his adoptive sister, who is upset with him because the Marquis ordered the assassination of her father Pyotr as a result of John's slaying of the elder, and Pyotr would have supported John in the fight. In response to John's offer to help Katia make amends, she instructs him to seek out German High Table member Killa, the person responsible for her father's murder. After being located, John visits Killa's nightclub where Kane and Mr. Nobody are also present. Killa plays cards with the three, cheating while doing so, and then orders his soldiers to pursue the three assassins. While John pursues Killa throughout the club among unaware clubgoers, Kane and Nobody manage to hold their own against the thugs, along with Nobody's dog. Killa utilizes his power and weight against John while John battles him, slicing Killa's throat with a card in the process. John is pursued by Killa's men, who are fatally wounded. Killa attempts to stop John by pushing him off a balcony, but it is ineffective. Killa is eventually cornered by John, who then throws him down a flight of stairs, killing him as he hits the ground head first. As confirmation of Killa's demise, John grabs one of his gold teeth and shows it to Katia. Katia responds favorably and assists John as he goes through the procedure to receive the family crest and support for the duel. The official John challenge document is brought by Winston to the Marquis. Winston explains that even though the Marquis tries to back out, he is still obligated to follow the High Table's traditions. Additionally, Winston asks that if John wins, he will restore his management to the Continental, remove the condemnation, and end his excommunication. Winston is nonetheless reminded by the Marquis that as he will be John's second, he too will pass away if John does. The Harbinger preside over them as John arrives to sit down with the Marquis to discuss the terms of the duel. In dawn, they will meet in Paris Sacré-Cœur and engage in a gun duel. It will constitute a forfeiture and grounds for execution if any of them fails to appear by the deadline. Kane will be the Marquis' second child, and if he can kill John, he'll release both him and his daughter. John visits a church and takes a seat to honor Helen. He finds Kane there, who welcomes him and tells him about Mia and what he stands to lose. Bowery King presents John with a new gun and a bulletproof suit when they later meet. John also meets Winston. The Harbinger warns the Marquis of what would transpire if John were to assassinate him at the High Table. The Marquis sends Chitty and his thugs after John to make sure he doesn't arrive at the Sacré-Cœur in time. Additionally, a radio DJ informs any other assassins who are listening that John has a bounty on his head for anyone who can murder him before dawn. Numerous assassins pursue John as he makes his way to the Sacré-Cœur. He engages shooters in street combat, even swerving into traffic near the Arc de Triomphe to shoot the bad guys or allow them to be run over by vehicles. His whereabouts are tracked by the High Table, which prompts further assassins to seek him out. John walks into a room filled with criminals and starts shooting explosive rounds at them. While helping to kill some of the assassins, Nobody phones the Marquis and requests a larger payment. In the end, the Marquis accepts a $40 million deal, driving more frantic and tragic hitmen away. When John finally reaches the Sacré-Cœur steps, he kills a number of further assailants before Chitty appears and throws him all the way back down the steps. In order to help John get to the top and murder Chitty's men, Kane appears. Nobody else shows up and starts attacking Chitty for throwing his dog into the street, although the dog is fine. Chitty is hauled to the ground with John's assistance, the dog bites him in the balls, and Nobody shoots him in the head. The dog also urinates on Chitty's face for good measure. Just as the sun rises, John arrives. He and Kane take up their pistols and begin a traditional duel. Both succeed in striking each other twice. Kane shoots John in the stomach during the third round, but John doesn't respond. The Marquis then gives him the go-ahead to pull off the ultimate kill so that he can be the one to dispose of John Wick. Before Winston calls him a conceited jerk and points out that John didn't fire his last round, he pulls his gun and points it at John. Before John blows his brains out, the Marquis discovers this, but it's too late. After that, the Harbinger states that John and Kane are no longer subject to the High Table's demands. Before he collapses, John briefly remembers Helen as he descends the stairs and says her name. John Wick goes out on top. Bowery and Winston John desired that his tombstone read loving husband, thus the king interred him next to Helen. When BK inquires as to whether John is in heaven or hell, Winston responds, "Who knows?" As the two depart, BK keeps watching over John's dog, please consider subscribing. If you enjoyed the content, then please hit the like button, as it helps the channel and is greatly appreciated. Also, if you know anyone who would enjoy watching this content, then please share and help this community grow. Thanks for watching.